Hi, my name is Ashley Bugby, and this is my EDL 952 Module 4 over supporting appropriate adult relationships. And the scenario given in this is that this district was faculty and staff are very disconnected from their students. So this is a presentation that I would put together to hopefully do at a professional development. So to begin with, I think it would be really important to show information to teachers and remind them why positive relationships are important in schools. Obviously, a connection and strong relationships link to higher motivation within students. Due to COVID, there are no pre-existing relationships, and with that, there's a rise in anxiety and connections were lost at school. Students who feel safe and supported make less detrimental decisions overall, and that can be within or outside of the school building. Students engage with academic tasks longer and believe that it is okay to make mistakes if they feel like they're in a safe and positive environment. And I think that these are all things that lead directly to student achievement, and it is vital that a school focus on positive relationships. I think it's really important to be a little introspective and go back and look at what positive versus negative relationships looks like. So one of the priorities I think that we have to have as educators is to have empathy, to understand feelings and the motivation of students. It's really important that we take a second and realize that most behaviors are not directly related to what is happening in that moment when it comes to students. A positive relationship, teachers, especially towards students, express care, they challenge their growth, they provide support. It is a shared power experience. It should not be an authoritative experience. They expand possibilities and are culturally responsive as well. Take time to get to know those students on a deeper level. They show enjoyment, they know and demonstrate knowledge of student backgrounds and interest, and avoid irritability. So it's really important to get to know students a little bit on a deeper level, and healthy relationships are built on trust, kindness, safety, and security. And all of this above, I think, is important to also, there's a caveat with this. Positive, trusting, safe relationships. And I think sometimes we get into schools, and I know within the school I teach in right now, there is a fine line between being a teacher and being a friend. And it's important to stress to our faculty members that they need to build those relationships and get to know those students, but maintain that fine line. So to be very cautious with interactions over social media, giving out phone numbers, the kind of contact that they have with students and parents even outside of school walls is really important to note, because that is something, it needs to be positive, professional relationships with students. And that's hard in small communities, especially because a lot of people are intertwined and know each other more so outside of school walls sometimes than they do. That was just something that I wanted to throw in there, because you can absolutely have positive relationships that might be a little bit toxic because of how informal they are in a school setting. So I want to draw that line there too. When I think of interacting with somebody that just isn't my favorite person, or maybe I have to go to an event or I have to work with them, there are physical and emotional things that happen to your body when you have to deal with a negative relationship. I know that I almost feel like I get tense, I'm anxious, I'm quick to temper, and sometimes I'll just avoid the situation altogether if I at all possibly can. So that's exactly what students will do in a negative environment and with a negative relationship. And here are some of the things to show how some of that could come about, or some of the signs of a negative relationship. Exhibiting anger, frustration, or irritability, especially quickly. Of course, we're not all perfect, and there's going to be days where the adults are human too and are going to react to stuff because of things that are happening in their lives. But if it's something that consistently comes up, especially with the same students, there's probably some issues there. Being sarcastic or disrespectful in interactions. Sarcasm, I think, is a really great defense mechanism, and it's a humor tool, and it can be beneficial to some people who understand it, but unfortunately, not everybody understands it, and some people will take to heart the sarcasm. So you have to be really, really careful when being sarcastic with students. Communication failures are really important, and then also focusing on the negative. So if you're just constantly going on about this person, oh, you're always late. Oh, imagine that. Hey, he's late again. That can be really frustrating, detrimental to students as well. And harsh, punitive behavior for something that you have to make it sure it's fair and it's just. So if you wouldn't do something to one student, you better not be doing it to another. So, building relationships is everybody's responsibility. I know that, and I think I have it here a little bit later on, that it said licensed personnel, if they can get small groups and work one-on-one with the student, that has the most ability to help a student. However, everybody that's in that building interacts, whether it's maintenance, bus drivers, district office staff. You have to be a part of that positive climate, culture, and relationships that are being built to have a true, safe, and supportive learning environment. Through the resources, I've gathered some strategies, some that are quick and some that'll be a little more long-term, that you can utilize within your classrooms and the school environment to hopefully start building those positive relationships. So something simple that you can do within a classroom during any period would be to have small table groups, allow them time to work together, not only on class stuff, but you could also do social emotional learning with students at that time as well. The 2x10 method is a method that you talk with a student for 2 minutes a day, 10 days in a row, and discuss stuff with them about their interest, about them personally. You don't need to get too far into their personal life, but find out something about them that creates a little bit more connection and that environment of trust. And this is an opportunity for adults to model social emotional skills of how you talk to somebody, and then also could be beneficial to choose a student that's struggling, one that you don't know very well, or possibly a new student to the school. This should be a no-brainer, but constant parent communication and involvement. Some of these parents are coming from a position that they never liked school, and they may not care about it as much. And so you reaching out not only when their student is having issues, but also to celebrate their student successes is vital. And having it constant and open communication with them is very important to create that trusting environment with them and their student as well. The daily, weekly check-ins is something that was, reading through these resources, there was a lot of COVID information, but that should continue into the classroom now. You should have conversations and positive interactions with students that aren't just about content in your classroom. Feedback process, so that's especially in behavior issues or the way students, act, or the rules within your class. Make sure you give clear feedback and focus on positives and incentives. Some of the longer term strategies are ones that you're going to have to continue to do. So the small group work, its the most effective relationships are increased in personal small group settings. So if you're going to do social emotional learning, especially, the small group work, if not individual, would be the best. And this is something that probably could be done through a counselor as well. High quality instruction. It's really easy to think, here's a worksheet, everybody can do this. But if students can't rise to meet the needs or adapt what they're learning with, they can become bored or complacent, and that's when you start to see behavior issues as well. And along with instruction, elevate a student's voice and choice. So allow them to decide, how am I going to complete this assignment? Or what am I going to do this assignment over? Maybe you have that much ability to give them. Restorative practice, this is one that focuses, this is something you would definitely, I think, have to have a whole professional development, probably continued professional development over of how to do restorative practice. And that is working with the parties that were a part of a conflict to come to some sort of resolution. Hopefully that's an understanding together, and having that mediator that's in between that helps them come to that resolution too. I think this would be a great one for students to use as adults as well. Creating a positive climate. We have to model respectful and positive relationships and foster them between students as well. So they're looking at us, we're adults in their lives. Sometimes we're the only adults they look up to in our lives. So we have to take those initiatives to have positive relationships and encourage positive relationships between students. So make sure you're watching out for bullying and those things to make sure everybody feels included and trusting and safe. Trauma informed, this is actually something that we, several years ago in my school district, spent a lot of time on. And this is, one thing is looking back into everybody comes from somewhere different, and we all have different traumas that we face in our lives. And some of these students are facing things that I could not even imagine facing at their age. And so they don't leave that at our door. They bring it with them, and those traumas could be indicators of behavior issues. Maybe they have a problem with men because their dad yelled at them this morning. Or maybe they're struggling today because they didn't get to sleep until 3 a.m. because their baby brother was crying all night. So starting to become trauma informed, I think, is really valuable, but it's a long process too, and should be done with professional ongoing development. Why should a school district change? It is because positive relationships are correlated directly to higher student achievement, attendance and retention, graduation rates. That's the business we're in, is graduating kids and making them successful individuals. Some roadblocks that could happen along the way are honestly roadblocks I feel like are pretty across the board problems that we run into. Time. Do we have the time to invest in the professional development for this? And when I say invest, not just, oh, we did 1 hour here, are we continuing to come back to it to make sure we're doing this with fidelity? Resources. We've done this training, but now do we have the resources to go into a classroom and help students? Or do we have support resources like a counselor, a school psychologist, a social worker? How do we find those things for our students, or resources for our parents as well? And I think some issues that you could find with this also are teacher burnout. We ask teachers to do a lot of administrative tasks, and every year there's something new that comes down that they have to do within their classrooms. And so to have to sit down and think these through and input some of this stuff, it could be a real struggle, especially for teachers that have done this a long time, that have seen things come and go. I can see that being a big roadblock. And here are my resources. Thank you.